Welcome to Wisdom for Nonprofits, bringing the best business wisdom to the nonprofit world. Proven leaders share their experience, insights, and best practices. Finally, a podcast for the busy nonprofit professional. And now, your trusted advisor, Bettina Meyer-Flug.
Hello folks, we are here with Sarah Scobey, our nonprofit librarian for Fort Collins, and she's a resource librarian, actually has a master's degree in art history and another master's degree in library science. She was the multicultural chairperson here in the library and was invited for this position. Sarah, can you explain us how did you got involved in nonprofits?
Sure. So my background is that I'm actually from Fort Collins, and I left to go to college and pursue my graduate degrees, but was really passionate about the community and came back. And a number of years ago, I was approached by my colleague Ann McDonald, who is the business librarian. She was working with both nonprofits, with folks that were jobs and career seekers, and with small business, and it just exploded. So what happened was I did some research, found that there are over 900 nonprofits in Fort Collins. There are over 2,000 in Larimer County, and I did a presentation to the board, and when they were doing their strategic plan, really identified as a target audience jobs and career folks, because Fort Collins has such an entrepreneurial spirit, jobs and careers, small business, and nonprofits. And the board and our administration decided to allocate funding for staffing to work with those populations. So that's kind of how I got my start working with the nonprofit world. And because since I'd grown up here, I was pretty well connected and knew who many of the players were and are. So it was a pretty easy transition for me to slip into this position.
And how many years have you been involved with nonprofits now?
So I want to say going on 5 years now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how do you see the growth of this nonprofit segment here in our area?
I think it's really taken off because of one, we have the university, we have this wonderful entrepreneurial spirit in Fort Collins and in northern Colorado. My cautionary tale is that there are so many nonprofits, so it is quite a competitive field. So to think, long and hard and do your research before you start the process.
We want to know, how can you help a brand new nonprofit and how do you help an established nonprofit?
Okay.
All the services that you offer.
Okay.
I know you have meetings with people that want to start a nonprofit. You give them recommendations, for example. Instead of opening a new nonprofit, you recommend them to look for another one that's already in the same field.
Right.
And for another established nonprofit, their needs are totally different. How do
are.
you manage those
Yes.
both segments?
And yes, that's a good question, and that's a lot of what I do is juggling between the folks that are just starting out and those that are more established. For the folks that are starting out, I direct them to resources, websites, databases. I give them packets of information about how do you start a 501c3. We talk long and hard about what other options are, the fact that perhaps what we need are not more nonprofits, but more services. So as you were saying, Bettina, can you align yourself with an existing nonprofit? Can you perhaps go to an existing nonprofit and ask them to be your fiscal sponsor, which is an entirely another topic of conversation, but that's an option. For more established nonprofits, Again, I offer classes and I bring in experts in the field to talk about things such as, how to create and sustain legacy donors, how to, board development and board leadership for your board. What other classes? Oh, understanding your audit for nonprofits. So, and then finally, I work with folks that are interested in working for nonprofits. In fact, I just met with a young recent CSU grad, and she was interested in starting out working in the nonprofit sector. So I showed her a couple of different databases or job boards out there that exist for nonprofits. One is the Colorado Nonprofit Association has a job board. The other is the Philanthropy News Digest has a job board. We've even looked at Indeed and how do you do a search in Indeed to look for nonprofit organizations that are hiring. So all over the gamut.
Yes, I attended to one of your workshops about taxes and was really impressive. So you bring subjects that are really being taught around. How do you select what you're gonna have in your workshops?
So what I do is first of all, I always do an evaluation for the workshop that I've provided. And in that evaluation, I ask, what would you like to see? What would be most helpful to you? And I get ideas for future workshops from the nonprofit sector. It's directly itself, from talking to individuals that work for the different nonprofits in Fort Collins.
That's why people are so happy with your workshops.
Well, thank you.
Okay, can you give more examples of workshops and trainings that you offer for nonprofits?
Sure. So, for instance, later in August, we're going to be offering social media is, of course, huge for both nonprofits and for business folks, and we're going to be offering a class on Facebook and social media for nonprofits. I'm also I did a 3-part audit series for nonprofits that need to have a better understanding of the whole audit process, and the final class or the final workshop in that series is understanding your audit results for nonprofits, and that's going to be later in September. And then I know Kim Fisher was one of your earlier podcast presenters, and she's coming. She is remarkable, and I'm bringing her back to do a workshop on starting a 501c3 and doing it right with Kim Fisher. I'm really excited to be bringing in Maggie Dennis, who is a local grant writer, and she's going to be offering a workshop where she'll sit down with you, with a nonprofit, and work with you one-on-one and go through a grant that was perhaps rejected or maybe one that you're going to be submitting soon, and she'll go through that with you and offer her tips and pointers. So those are just a few of the examples of the workshops that I'll be offering, and you can find those all on the library website.
That's awesome. You had also Art Bavozo here, I heard.
Art Bavozo has been here, and he's coming back with Third Sector Enterprises. Art is going to be doing his wonderful workshop on establishing legacy donors.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
I know that you have some experience with grants. Can you explain how you help nonprofits with grants?
Sure. So the library subscribes to a number of different grant databases. The two that are the most well-known and the most useful are the Foundation Center database, which has over 140,000 funders in it, as well as the Colorado Grants Guide, and that is used to be a paper volume, and now that's online. And that, again, is supported by the Community Resource Center, and that's got over 700 funders. So what I do is I will sit down with a nonprofit, somebody in their development office or an executive director if they're wearing both those hats, and we will come up with a strategy to search those databases, because they're tasked with finding a funder that's mission and values aligns with the nonprofit's mission and values. And rather than just sitting down with Google and doing sort of this casting that are really huge, ineffective net out into the Google world, you sit down with a database and with me, and we hopefully save you time and come up with a list of funders that are a much better fit.
And is there any charge for this service?
That's all free.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And not all the nonprofits know about this service.
So send me an email and make an appointment, and I will sit down with you.
Oh, that's really, really good. And I remember you mentioned something about individual donors. You have a database that nonprofits can research as well. Can you explain about it?
Well, it's not a donor database per se, but it's called Reference USA, and it's our business database where you can go and look up businesses. But in addition to doing that, you can also look up individuals, and you can look at their for instance, you can look at their income levels. It's a little scary. It's a little Big Brother-y. You can look at their income levels, so you can target it to whatever demographic you think would be most appropriate for your nonprofit. You can also look at their areas of interest. So, for instance, there is a section where you can limit by not only income or household income, but you can also limit by if there's been a charitable giver in the past before.
Oh, that's
So you
really
can-
helpful.
So you exactly. So you can see, if this person has a tendency to give to charities. You can also look at their other interests if they're interested in, pets or the environment, and so you can tailor your. And this is really better for a direct marketing approach. Not so good for emails because you won't get emails. Those kinds of prospecting lists are pretty expensive. I mean, they exist and they're out there, but this is kind of a do-it-yourself that you can do for free from the library. And again, I'm happy to help the nonprofit with that as well.
So that means the library pay for the systems?
We pay for the subscription, exactly.
And the nonprofits can access. What do they need to do to access this database? They have to have a library card. What is the procedure?
Okay, so for Reference USA, if you wanted to use it from home, you can. You would need to have your library card. With the Foundation Center and the Colorado Grants Guide, you would need to be in the library, and you need to be either at the Old Town Library or here at the Harmony Library. But the nice feature now about the Foundation Center database and the Colorado Grants Guide is that you can come in with your laptop and do the search on your laptop, so you can download the results to your own computer.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know you partnered with some nonprofits association in other areas around here. So can you recommend something in Denver or areas around? Is there any other person like you in other cities around?
Well, Estes Park is fortunate to have the Estes Park Nonprofit Resource Center. And their executive director is Lori Dale Marshall, and we do try to work together to look for sponsors to bring in the Community Resource Center, the CRC, to do trainings for nonprofits in Northern Colorado. We have recently collaborated with United Way and found sponsors through the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado, the Better Business Bureau, Wheelhouse for Nonprofits, Research Evaluation.
Maybe we can put on the notes of the podcast the contact information
Yes.
for those people,
Yes.
and even yours, so people can
Sure.
schedule. So it's easy to schedule an appointment with you.
Yeah.
How is the procedure?
Just send me an email. You can just go to our website, go to pooterlibraries.org, scroll down the page, look for the nonprofit resources link, click on that, scroll down, and then on the left side of the screen, there'll be a button for request an appointment. You just click on that. Or you can send me a direct email. You can sign up for our newsletter from the nonprofit webpage. So that's also another way of keeping well connected.
Okay. Now talking a little bit about your personal life. We need to know a little bit more about you. What is your favorite thing from Fort Collins?
That is a really hard question. I love this town so much. As I said earlier, I grew up here, left to go to college and graduate school, but no place compared to Fort Collins for quality of life, for just the spirit. I think that just the fact that we've got so many nonprofits, we've got so many folks that really care and want to make a difference and are so creative and so bright and so hardworking. I mean, this is just a remarkable community for that. But on a very personal level, I really love to run. And running in the foothills trails is that's where I go for my me time.
Your thing.
My thing. That is my thing, and that's really what brings me great joy. Is to, aside from my family and my children and my husband, but is to run in the foothills trails of Fort Collins. I love it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. More people should move to Colorado to enjoy this. So, can you give us 3 tips for nonprofits?
Sure. I think for folks that are thinking of starting out, remember that starting a nonprofit has to be much more than your passionate idea. You really need to demonstrate that there is a need in the community. You also want to do a needs assessment and make sure there aren't other organizations that already exist that are doing something similar, if not the same. So do your needs assessment before you jump into having a 501c3. And as a very wise executive director said to me, what we need are not more nonprofits, but more services. So that's one tip. I think for existing nonprofits, don't forget to collaborate with other nonprofits and businesses out there in the community. Funders oftentimes are looking for examples of effective, powerful collaborations and partnerships. So collaborate. And finally, don't forget about the library. We have wonderful resources here, wonderful databases for nonprofits. And again, all you need to do is just go to the pooterlibraries.org, scroll down and click on the nonprofit resources link, and you'll come up with our list of databases with information on starting a nonprofit, with information on our classes. So don't forget to utilize your public library.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question that I forgot to ask you, I will do it now. How about the I-90 form? Everybody talks about it, how it's important to have it updated, and do you have any suggestions on how to work on this document? Is this a subject that you have on your workshops? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I don't, and that might be a good topic for another workshop, and perhaps bring in one of our CPAs to come in and to do a workshop. But it is really important to keep up to date on your paperwork and all your documentation, and you definitely need that for the IRS. So
something really big here in Colorado is Colorado Gives Day.
Yes.
How the library partner with Colorado Gives Day, and how do you train the nonprofits on how to use this big how can I explain Colorado Gives
Colorado
Day,
Gives Day.
like this big incentive for donations?
Well, it's a big day for nonprofits. I have done a workshop where I brought in Ella Farlander with the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado, and the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado is an organization that is the caretaker for Colorado Gives Day in Northern Colorado. But she's come in and she's talked about how you prepare, what you need to do to be ready for Colorado Gives Day. It is a relatively rigorous process. For more information on that, I would take a look at Colorado Gives Day. I would take a look at the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado, and also consider perhaps getting Better Business Bureau accreditation, because when you get their accreditation, that really readies you to being ready to participate on Colorado Gives Day.
I've seen you invited also Better Business Bureau to talk on your workshops.
Yes.
You
Yes,
had a lot of attendance on this workshop?
It was, yes, really well received, and had a number of nonprofits that sought out Jennifer Hankey and went through the process as a result of that workshop.
Perfect. And how people can know more information? You have a Facebook page. I know that's very famous. You post all your events there. Can you tell us a little bit about your Facebook?
So one thing I didn't mention that's really important is I've got the Fort Collins Nonprofit Networking Group Facebook page, and that is a great tool to go for more information on. For instance, I just received an email from Jim McDonald, who's the Director of Cultural Services with the City of Fort Collins, about a grant that's coming up. So that I posted to the Facebook page. I facilitate 2 different networking groups. One is for the Fort Collins Nonprofit Networking Group, meets the 4th Wednesday of the month here at the Harmony Library at 3 o'clock. And that is for everyone involved in nonprofits, everyone from board members to executive directors to volunteers to staff to consultants that work with nonprofits. Again, that's the 4th Wednesday here at the Harmony Library at 3 o'clock. And then the other group that we've recently launched is for executive staff, and that's for executive directors, development officers, and that meets the 2nd Tuesday at 11 o'clock at Avos. But more information can be found on the Facebook page.
Yes, thank you very much,
Sure.
Sarah Scobey. I know you're always available to help others and help nonprofits. Thank you for being part of our podcast, and I hope to have you again one day.
Well, thank you so much, Bettina, for talking with me. It was my pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom for Nonprofits. To hear past and future episodes, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast channel. We appreciate your reviews and suggestions for future show topics. If you have a question or a suggestion, please write to us at podcast@wity.tech. More resources are available for you at our website, wity.tech. And please join us in the Wisdom for Nonprofits group on LinkedIn. Wisdom for Nonprofits is copyright 2019 by Bettina Meyer-Flug and wity.tech. All rights reserved.